With a rapid and radical chain of events in recent weeks in Syria that led to the downfall of the government, let's understand the historical context in which this all took place. Shalom, my friends. This is Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so in the comments. Where did Syria come from? How is it formed? What is it all about? Well, it's important to understand the historical context of Syria in order to understand what's going on there right now today. Syria was formed as a result of the post-World War I colonialism that took place in the Middle East. Right? The Middle East was part of the Ottoman Empire for many hundreds of years, leading up to World War I, in which the Ottomans were fighting powers like the British and the French and lost to those powers. And as a result, they lost all of the land of the Middle East, and the Ottoman Empire shrunk basically to what we call the country of Turkey today. After much deliberation and thinking what should happen with the Middle East, it was decided upon to institute something called the mandate system, in which the Middle East was carved up into 4 different mandates. There was half of it was given to the British, and half of it was given to the French. And out of this came the future countries of Jordan and Iraq, Lebanon and Syria, and of course, the state of Israel. Well, Syria was part of the French mandate, governed by the French, but they weren't meant to stay there forever. They were meant to oversee the creation of new countries that never existed for the people living there, with the hope that this would give them a good life. That didn't happen, as chaos quickly broke out, as the people being governed did not want to be governed by colonial powers, even if they were technically temporary. Although the reality was that both the French and the British did much in their power to stay as long as they possibly could in the region in order to benefit from the economic and political situation there. There were all kinds of riots and all kinds of revolts against the colonial powers, both against the British and against the French. But eventually, in the 1940s, the Syrian country did appear. It was created, and within its borders was were all kinds of ethnic groups. You had mostly Arab Muslims, but within that you had both Shiite and Sunni Muslims, a Sunni majority, to be clear, but also a Shiite minority. Now, what's the difference between Sunni Muslims and Shiite Muslims? It's a big topic, but basically it comes down to that at the very, very beginning of Islamic history, there was a break, there was a difference, there was a debate, a serious debate, a conflict even after Muhammad died, who should take over, and there was a difference of opinion of what or should be like a criteria to choose who takes over after Muhammad. Should it be based on merit or should it be based on family connection? That was it. And that was the split right from the beginning of Islamic history of Sunni Islam and Shiite Islam. Now, there are also different legal traditions within these two kinds of Islam, but for the most part, they practice very, very similarly. It's important to know, that most of the Muslim world is Sunni, right? And the minority, maybe around 10% of all the Muslims in the world are Shiite. It's also interesting to note for what we're talking about is that when you look at the Middle East, most of the Muslims in the Middle East are Sunni, but Iran is Shiite. Okay, even though Iran is just outside of the Middle East, it has plays a large role in the Middle East, right? As we know, Iran is Shiite. The government of Syria for the last many, many decades has been Shiite, even though they are the minority. They were ruling the majority. And the terrorist organization Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, who Israel has been fighting against for so many decades, is also Shiite. So you see that alignment right there: Iran, the Syrian government, and Hezbollah. And so there was much conflict in the early years because of all these different ethnic groups being forced to live together: Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, Druze, Christians, and other minorities. These were artificial borders created by colonial powers in the years after World War I and after World War II, forcing all kinds of people to live together who really didn't want to live together. And that created instability throughout the region. In every country, it came out in a different way. Well, eventually, in the 1960s, there was an overthrow of the government in Syria, and that put in the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party. And they were the ones who were in charge up until just a couple of days ago. They were the ones who ruled Syria with an iron fist, a one-party system, no independent judicial system, complete control over the military. And they ruled Syria for decades in this harsh kind of way. And in Arab Spring, back in around 2010, 2011, when the Arab world was shaking up and people were hitting the streets and they were protesting against their totalitarian governments, we saw this also in Syria, and the people really tried to bring down the government back then, and that is what led to the civil war. That is what led to the fighting between the government and rebel groups and all kinds of rebel groups, and eventually ISIS came into it, as we talked about in a previous video. So that's the historical context of how Syria came to be not only a country, but a country with great conflict. Right? All these different groups kind of vying for power, all these different groups being forced to live with one another when they didn't really, and it didn't make natural sense for them to live with one another. What we're seeing right now is the unfolding of a new era for Syria, and as a result, the Middle East, and of course, included in that, Israel. We're definitely can continue to keep our eyes on this unfolding story and share updated news with you as we have it. All the best, my friends, and be well.